And you're very welcome to the 2021 Galway Bay FM Cheltenham Festival preview with myself, George McDonagh. Delighted to be joined by Johnathan Mullin, John McIntyre, and from Boylesports, Leon Blanche. And before we start, some great news from Leon Blanche that he is giving us each €100, the charity bet, and all proceeds will go to the Rosabelle Rooms charity here in Galway that do such fantastic work. And at the end of our preview, we will give you our selections to hopefully put a few quid in the bank balance of the Rosabelle Rooms charity. Well, firstly, it is a great pleasure for me to have the three lads here joining us for our Cheltenham Festival preview. It's a Cheltenham of difference this year. I don't know, the three men I'm talking to would gladly be on a plane on Monday morning going to the Cheltenham Festival. Unfortunately not, but it's great to have racing at the Cheltenham Festival. We will have some very competitive racing. We got news that Jason the Militant now is out of his engagement in Ugerman. Of course, the big clash with Shiskin and company in the Arkhill Chase. But still, we have some fantastic racing at Prestbury Park coming up, commencing on Tuesday at 1:20. And firstly, Johnathan Mullin, I'll turn to you. The novice hurlers this year, I think it's certainly advantage Ireland right across the board. I think when we look at the novice hurls, the three big novice hurls for the Cheltenham Festival, and we could throw in the Triumph hurl as well.
I hope you're right. I do think we have a couple of weaknesses all the same. I'm not sure that William Mullins' team is as strong in the novice hurdles as the betting would suggest. I think Appreciate is vulnerable over 2 miles, but I also think the Blue Lord in the same race is a fantastic chance, George. I think the pennies begin to drop at him, and especially if For Pleasure runs in the Supreme and guarantees a good pace, I think Blue Lord could be the one to land the first for Willie Mullins. Obviously, we've the likes of Ballyadam the first as well, so it could actually cut up. The Supreme could cut up the first race. I do think the favourite is very, very vulnerable, and likewise, I think Gaillard de Menil in the Ballymore mightn't be the strongest contender that Willie Mullins has sent to that race in the last couple of years. But it must be said, I think, in my view anyway, the Ballymore is again a better race and this year. Bob Ollinger has done nothing wrong. You know, he's been really, really good. I think virtually a year ago he won the point-to-point bumper in Goran, and I think everybody knew then that he was a really, really good horse. I think he's got the best form of any novice hurdler in Ireland and England this year. I think he'll take a lot of beating in the Ballymore, especially if it's set up with the Brave Man's Game, making all or trying to make all. It should suit someone like him with a bit of towing behind. Triumph, yeah, we have a very strong hand, but Tritonic is going to be very, very hard to beat as well. And I think there's no doubt when you go through Metier in the Supreme, when you go through Brave Man's Game in the Ballymore, when you look at Tritonic in the Triumph, I think Britain have a stronger hand than in other years. Now Zanny here is a fair tool, no question about that. He's done it every which way. Quixilios is there as well. But I wouldn't rule out Tritonic. I liked him the last day. I thought he was very, very gutsy. And I wouldn't be rushing to have a bet at current prices in any of the races, actually. I think apart from Blue Lord in the first, which is still a double figure price, I think a lot of the front end will be bigger come Tuesday as the bookmakers get very competitive with each other.
Yeah, I think they will have to get competitive. Of course, we have the off-course markets this year. There'll be plenty of bonuses to be had, and no doubt Leon Blanche will fill us in on some of those a little bit later on. And having a claim to fame of tipping up La Baïque when he was 50-1 and Edebayan many years ago at 66-1, I think Willie Mullins has a mighty chance in the opener with a horse called MC Muldoon. Wasn't too bad on the flat, was rated at 100 at one stage, pulled very, very hard behind wide receiver in his first run for almost 2 years, I thought, at Leopardstown. Won when hooded at Fairy House. I think Better Ground could bring out a horse at 50-1 in places, and especially with a lot of bookmakers going to go each way the first 4 or 5, I think that would give him a chance. John McIntyre, would you be with or against Appreciated? And I have a feeling you may be a big fan of Bob Ollinger.
Yeah, I would be a fan of Bob Ollinger, and I would agree with a lot of Jonathan's assessments of the novice hurdlers. Go back to last year's festival bumper in Cheltenham. Appreciated was sent off favourite, came there to win his race. Fernie Hollow was a good bit back and still finished off the race better. You must also bear in mind that only 2 7-year-olds have won the Supreme Novices in the last 25 years. Now, curiously, one of those was Tourist Attraction, which gave Willie Mullins his first ever winner at the festival. And, I think that's an important stat. And I just thought that Ballyadam on his last run in Leopardstown, the ground conditions were a little bit drier. I know Cheltenham had 6 mils of rain on Thursday night, and the ground is gone to good to soft on all 3 courses. But Ballyadam is a horse that I like. I think Cheltenham will suit him, the drying ground, and appreciate it. I just think I don't think he's bulletproof. He may still win the race, but I'm just put off by the fact that he's a 7-year-old. Like Johnathan, I'd be fairly sweet on Bob Ollinger in the Ballymore. He's done nothing wrong so far. Brave Man's Game is a very worthy candidate, though, from the Paul Nichols yard. He's had a very strong gallop in the Challow in Newbury and maintained it right to the line and had some good ones in behind. So I wouldn't be ruling him out either. Willie's top candidate, not sure about him. Look, he was impressive enough at Leopardstown. And going back to the Supreme Novices, I think Harry Fry's horse Meteor, he was quite impressive in the Talbrook at Sandown. And, everybody says the Pressbury Cup is a done deal for Ireland. I mean, people are making a prediction that Ireland could win 16 to 20 of the races. But, this is Cheltenham. There may be nobody there, but it's still hard to win. Mm-hmm. I like Tritonic in the Triumph Hurdle. I was very impressed with him the last day. I mean, he's nearly a rating of 100 on the flash, and he's going to take some pegging back. And that would be my summary of the Triumph and the Ballymore and the Supreme Novices. Going on then to the Albert Bartlett hurdle. You really want a horse to stay, and the two that I like are Choreograph from Gordon Elliott's yard, even though Gordon Elliott's name won't be on the race card. And I think Fakira, when a lot of horses have cried enough coming to the last hurdle in the Albert Bartlett, he'll be one that'll be staying up the hill.
Leon Blanche, Fakira, and I'm delighted that John mentions that. Gives me a perfect link to yourself. Fakira is owned by Timmy O'Driscoll, a great friend of a late friend of ours, Paul McGee. And I think Timmy O'Driscoll epitomises everything what Irish people love about racing. He's done well for himself in business. He follows his passion, which is horse racing. And I think an awful lot of ordinary racegoers in Ireland who've got to know Timmy over the years would be thrilled to see Timmy have a chat.
Oh, look, I mean, knowing Tim as I do, his first wish when he got into horses was to have a winner at Leopardstown, because he lives just a stone's throw from the track. He got that. And on John's point there with Fakira, I suppose at Christmas, I think the further he goes, the better he is. He's always doing his best work at the finish. So he goes there with a fighting chance in terms of the Albert Bartlett. Going back to the Supreme, definitely appreciated at the moment. Bookmakers will want to take him on. He's the first favourite of the week. Bookmakers are going to be out to get him. It's almost like he's been defaulted into becoming Willie's Supreme runner. I think they always felt he was going to be a 2.5 mile horse, or maybe even a little bit further. To be fair to him, he was very good at Christmas. I wasn't that impressed with him at the Dublin Racing Festival. He had it all his own way, and it was more of a kind of workmanlike performance, I felt, at the Dublin Racing Festival. I'm with the two boys. I've backed Blue Lord. I only watched that race again last night, and he was so far out of his comfort zone at the back in terms of making up ground on that particular ground at the Dublin Racing Festival. The penny is only starting to drop with him. His second behind Bob Ollinger is a brilliant run when you look at how he never settled for any time during that race. And I think he was, 4.5 lengths behind Bob Ollinger. I think a fast run Supreme will definitely be up his street. On to the Ballymore, I think we do have a brilliant chance here. I think Bob Ollinger, he has just been foot perfect. He doesn't seem to do anything wrong. He can go slow, he can go fast. His jumping is very slick. I'm sure he's going to be a part of the Irish trebles and lucky 15s and accumulators on day one. I'm sure he'll form a part of many multiples throughout the week. So I think he's got a big chance. But if you're looking at the Albert Bartlett, maybe one from left field, and maybe Johnny Mullen might have heard something about this, but a horse that is still in there is Ngolo. And if you look at Ngolo, if you go back a couple of runs to, I think he was second to Ballyadam at Ferryhouse. It was over the minimum trip. It was 2 miles. Yes, he's had a couple of disappointing runs since then. But I think something like him, if he was in the Albert Bartlett, he might just be able to spring a surprise at something like 20-1. It's not a race I'll be getting involved in. I'll be cheering on for Ciara, for Tim, and that's it. But maybe something outfield in the Albert Bartlett. It has a habit of throwing up crazy results.
It certainly has. It's something we've got to know over the years, that it's really a survival of the fittest, that horse, because no matter what the ground, they'll be strung out like washing coming up the hill. It is a real war of attrition, that particular race. If we can move to the novice chases, lads, and this is, we have, for the first time in years, we've 2 raging hot odds on favourites in 2 of the championship races in the novice brigade over fences. We have Monkfish, John McIntyre, who last year we seen what he'd done. You had to be impressed with him at Leopardstown. And we have Envoy Lane. A lot of us who always eulogise about horses with hype, and I'm one of those that seem to lump on some of these shorties at times. But Envoy Lane is the next cub, and I've made a prediction that come 1:30 on Thursday next, that Envoy Lane will be 3-1 favourite for the 2022 Cheltenham Gold Cup. Would you be in the camp? I know it's a fair statement, but we look to have 2 hot pots, and unfortunately with Inugerman gone from the Arkle, it takes a little from the Arkle, but it's an intriguing contest.
Well, first of all, George, going back to Monkfish and Envoy Allen, they are the 2 Irish bankers really, and on all known form, unless there's a mishap, both of them have to win. Monkfish was very impressive in the Flowgas. He jumped like a buck out in front. And it's hard to see him on that form not doing the job at Cheltenham, provided he avoids any bad mistakes or anything like that, which is always a danger in Cheltenham. Envoy Allen, they're talking about him as potentially the next Arkle. He's unbeaten. He hasn't put a foot wrong. I suppose the only slight question mark you would have is that the change of stable as a result of Gordon Elliott's fall from grace, will that impact on the horse a little bit? That remains to be seen. But the 2 of them almost look past the post. But how many times have we said in advance of Cheltenham previews, that's a banker, this is a banker, and it doesn't materialise that way. This is Cheltenham, it's going to be fiercely competitive. Yeah, the Arkle, Inugerman being ruled out by injury is a massive blow to a race that looked potentially the best of the meeting. Now, having said that, I've been following the Skeleton Yard profitably wise this season. I'm a big fan of All Mankind. He won the Kingmaker in Warwick by 17 lengths, giving £3 to Sky Pirate, and he jumped away. He didn't jump great that day, but the ground was extremely tacky. Shiskin, of course, is the one to beat. He just got the better of a great battle in the Supreme Novices last year with Abracadabra. He's jumped impeccably on his 2 starts. If All Mankind can avoid any jolting errors out in front, jumps from fence to fence, he may get Shiskin off the bridle. But I don't think it's a 2-horse race by any means. I think Captain Guinness, you go back to last year's Supreme, was bang there, I think, when he fell at the second last. Had a very uninspiring, I think he was pulled up on his chasing debut this season. But he's back to form, and he's the value of the race now, but it's All Mankind for me.
Johnathan Mullin, the point as we got from John McIntyre there is that he believes that Monkfish and Envoy Lane, they look past the post. The point I'll put to you is, I'm a big fan of Envoy Lane, but I'm worried, is the main danger to Envoy Lane the change of stable at such a late stage, and the fact that they brought in Shawnee Mahan? Yes, it's a great story that she's going to lead up her Pride and Joy, but is it a case they might have needed to?
Yeah, I get worried when I hear people saying horse are past the post at Cheltenham. As long as I'm watching Cheltenham, I'd say I can count maybe about 5 horses that have won the bridle at Cheltenham. It's a change of ground. First of all, it'll be good to soft on most days next week, so it's much different than what we're used to. And while Shiskin, Monkfish, Envoy Lane all look like the obvious contenders, and they are on form, to John's point on the Skeletons, they have All Mankind in the Arkle. Now, he'll go a million miles an hour. If he jumps and pegs everything, you've got to do everything right in behind. and Shishkin does hit flat spots and all that kind of thing, it could end up sulking if it gets too far behind. So, I mean, there's a chance that things can happen in a race like this that might just throw the form out of the window. So while Shishkin should win, you can't rule out the disruptive nature of a horse like All Mankind in a race like this. Likewise in the Marsh, you know, Sham Blue, if he gets rolling, we know he jumps really, really well, jumps even better than All Mankind. Doesn't stay at 3 miles, but 2.5 is perfect for him. Again, if he does everything right and you don't do everything right in behind, you know, there is a possibility that things can go wrong. Monkfish, there's a school of thought that he doesn't really want 3 miles. I wouldn't agree with that myself. To me, he's the one that there's less disruptive forces in his race than there would be in the other two. In terms of Invoilan, I don't think moving stables this close, you never know obviously, but it's no different to travelling to a race meeting or travelling to Cheltenham or travelling away to England for a day or whatever. So I don't really think it's a huge factor, George. I mean, I think on Betfair it's the difference between maybe 1.85 and 1.9 over the last couple of days. You know, people are factoring into their bets, but I don't think it's the thing that'll get them beat. I think good ground over less than 2.5 miles with a sharp jumping, quick travelling skeleton horse is a bigger danger to him than moving stables, especially when they're same feed. You know, Gordon has been telling Henry what they've been doing, all that kind of stuff. And also we've heard all along how professional a horse he is. So to me, the opposition will be a bigger danger than moving yard this close to the Cheltenham Festival.
Leon, obviously, if you could get one of these shorties beaten in the multiples, will certainly please ye because the multiples go down then. But are bookmakers fearing the likes of Monkfish and Invoilan being thrown in and everything, and now with Inugama gone, maybe Shishkin going into with them hot pot trebles?
Yeah, you would be, George, but that's Cheltenham. You know, like as Johnny said, you get that every single year. So there's nothing new there and there's nothing different there. Shishkin now, I think, has gone bottle 2-1 on because of Energamine not taking his chance next Tuesday. So you're looking at Shishkin, and I've heard what the lads have said in terms of All Mankind, but if you just look at Shishkin, how much went wrong last year in the Supreme Novices and he still won. I just think with a horse like him, and I think there's a reason why he's been kept away from Cheltenham. Mightn't just suit him, the up and down and everything else, but I still think he's the one they all have to beat. All Mankind is going to go from the front as quick as he can. And I take John's point earlier, his jumping wasn't as sleek on heavy ground, but if you go back to the run before that, his jumping was exceptional from the front. So if he gets into a rhythm and he starts to ping fences and he puts Shishkin under pressure, it's harder to come from behind when you have a front runner who's going to go 1,000,000 miles an hour and who's going to jump from fence to fence. In the Marsh, I think everybody in racing would love Invoilan to win. He has been kind of cribbed a little bit about that he's not that impressive, but he just keeps winning. And all he can do is win. He's never going to win by 7 or 8 lengths. I don't think he's that type of horse. His mentality is so good. He knows when he's winning and he gets the job done. It'll be great for all concerned with the horse. And I think it is a lovely touch, and I think that will help him. Just having his former groom there on the day, he'll know he's there to race. He's been to Cheltenham twice. He knows the surroundings. He knows the track, and he's done it. I just love to see him win. And I think as far as Monkfish is concerned, he's probably the most exciting horse I've seen in a couple of years as a novice chaser, even more so than Invoilan. It's just the way he does it, George. He's so uncomplicated. You look at how he runs on a track. He only has one little piece of tiny little bit of equipment. It's just jockey up, go out, let me jump. I was a little bit concerned stepping back and trip from 3 mile to 2 mile, 5.5 at the Dublin Racing Festival, but a little bit similar to what All Mankind could do in the Arkle. When Monkfish is jumping fence to fence and the speed he's going at, it's up to everybody else in behind him to try and get a hold of him. And I think Monkfish will win. The National Hunt Chase, which is an interesting one, I'm a big fan of Ascari at 10. I don't know where he's going to go. Maybe the lads would have a clue in terms of which race will he line up in. But I think wherever Ascari at 10 goes, I think he's going to run a huge race.
The key to that would be whether Royal Pigalle lads runs in the National Hunt Chase or not, would we think?
I don't care about Royal Pigalle or Royal Pigale. I think Ascari at 10 would beat him. He beat a bunch of absolute, I don't know what you'd call them in the last race. They wouldn't even be able to line up in Cheltenham. They'd probably have to start on Monday afternoon if they're running in the first on the Tuesday. So for me, I'm going to stick with Ascari at 10. I think he'll give Royal Pigale plenty to think about. John or Johnny, what do you think about that?
I'm a Galvin fan myself. Usually takes a horse to run in the 150s RPRs, and Galvin's done that twice in his life, and it's both been at chases in Cheltenham, which I think is interesting. This has clearly been the plan. Royal Pagali, I'd never heard of him until a couple of weeks ago, so I can't dismiss him that quickly, because he could be something, and I'd prefer if he wasn't around. Iscaria 10 goes for this, I think, Leon, as far as I know. I think I heard on the many podcasts and Zoomcasts going on, I heard someone, I couldn't tell you which one, someone said they'd been talking to Max McNeil and he was going for the National Hunt Chase, which is interesting in itself. I believe Jack Kennedy rides Galvin. I presume he'd have the choice, and that'll give me a bit of confidence with Galvin. He's the type of horse that can switch off. He's got lots of experience, which is essential for a race like this. But Iscaria 10, I would have fancied with the Ultima if he wrapped up there, because I think he's a really, really promising chaser. Could have easily been an Irish Grand National, Boylesports Irish Grand National type if he'd hung around for Fairyhouse at Easter time. So I certainly wouldn't dismiss him at all. Interesting race actually this year, even without the amateurs.
It is. We're not going to run out of time, as we're going to move to the championship races now. All I will say to Leon is I'd love to see one on either Shiskin or Monkfish beaten, because then they'd chalk up even money about in Vile Lane. You'd wade in, empty the right hand pocket, they'd still be putting even money up, and you go in with the left hand pocket in and cop the lot, because to me he's bomb proof, and I think it'd be a marvellous story if he was to win. Unfortunately, the circumstances, but I think this horse is bomb proof, and I think he could be a Cheltenham Gold Cup winner of 2022. Gentlemen, the champion hurdle is the first of our championship races. Epatante, the reigning champion. We see what Bouvardere is going to, not that Bouvardere had a chance anyways, I don't think, from the Henderson yard. Epatante and Honeysuckle. The £7 allowance is going to be a huge talking point. How big a talking point, John McIntyre, is the £7 allowance? Is it crucial to the success of these mares?
Absolutely. Dawn Run, I don't believe, would have won certainly the Gold Cup money for the £7 mare.
I think she got 5.
We haven't had too many mares winning the champion hurdle up to about maybe 20 years ago. I remember Flaky Dove winning it, and then there's been a few since. So, but it is critical. I mean, you're coming down to the last, and you have £7 less to carry in the saddle. And Epatante benefited from it last year. She blotted her copybook at Kempton at Christmas. Silver Streak is a very reliable horse for Devon Williams yard, but he's not a superstar. Now, they rode him from the front that day, and Nicky Henderson seems to think it was just an off day for Epatante, but she's coming into the festival with questions to answer. Of course, Honeysuckle has been a star in her own right, like Envoy Allen, unbeaten to date. I thought her very best performance so far was actually her last one in the Irish Champion at Leopardstown at the Dublin Festival. Went off in front, didn't see another rival, and I think she's a deserving favourite. But I have to go back to the Triumph Hurdle at last year's festival. I thought it was an above average renewal of the race, and coming to the last, Goshen was 10 lengths clear with every prospect of winning the race by 25 lengths. Unfortunately, they had a terrible mishap. It looked as though the horse was still remembering that his flat campaign during the summer wasn't great. His reappearance in Cheltenham was a disaster, ran too free. And I'd say the Moors were scratching their heads with him, but just in time, I think it was in Wincanton in the Kingwell. I know, maybe some of his rivals aren't on a par with what he's going to be meeting next Tuesday in Cheltenham, but you'd have to be impressed. And I think he is the main danger to Honeysuckle, and they're the two against the field for me.
Champion chase wise, John, would you be thinking?
Jacqueline Poursois is the talking horse. He was perceived as a big contender last year. He was withdrawn, I think, on the morning of the race. But I think he's there to be shot at. He's never been to Cheltenham before. Will he be suited by the ups and downs, the undulations? Mm-hmm. And there's question marks against them all. I mean, Politolog won from the front last year under Harry Skelton. He's a year older now. First Flow has seemingly come from nowhere from the back in form Kim Bailey yard. He'll probably give his running as well. But for me, he's a horse that I followed since he arrived in the Skelton yard. I remember him hacking up on his debut in England in a juvenile hurdle in Market Raisin. He subsequently finished third in the Fred Winter. Some of his best form as a novice chaser was up there with the best, and his only run this year was in the Desert Orchid Chase at Kempton, and he destroyed Altier and that the Arthur winner that was in Willie Mullins' yard, the grey horse, Nube Negre, and he's the one for me. I just think his raw speed, if he's there coming down to the last, I don't think any horse will match him for a finishing kick.
Point taken. Leon, Blanche, briefly to yourself, champion hurdle and champion chase.
Yeah, George, look, I think with Jacquemin Poursois, we all know he's had problems, and I think the biggest thing between now and hopefully next Wednesday is that Willie Mullins can get him there in one piece. I think he's got better with each run this year. They started him off a bit earlier down in Cork. I thought his last performance was his most impressive performance. At one stage, coming to the real end of the race, you felt he was in a really tough battle, but when Paul gave him a little squeeze between horses, he went by them like as if they were stopped. And he ran all the way to the line. Now, there is some people who don't like backing odds-on favourites, and that's probably the best kind of course of action when you go to a festival like Cheltenham. So for that reason, our money back for this year's festival again is money back if you're second or third to a starting price favourite. There's no doubt in my mind that Jacquemin will be favourite. You've got the likes of Altior at 6-1, Nube Negra 8-1, Politolog last year's winner. Put the Kettle On is an interesting runner at Cheltenham. Definitely, she loves the course. I'm not saying she's probably not good enough to win this particular race, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see her finish in the first three. The champion hurdle is a much more difficult race, I think, to try and work out. You've got Goshen. We all would love to see him get some redemption over what happened in the Triumph hurdle 12 months ago. He was 15-20 lengths clear coming to the last. He absolutely pulverised that field. He was disappointing up until his last run. The Moors have said that they've got to his problems. He will go out in front. If he gets into a rhythm, he will be hard to peg back. But it's the concession of £7. I think it's a little bit unfair, actually, giving mares a £7 allowance in a champion hurdle. And you've got two cracking mares in there. Epatante, she'll be much better on better ground that she will encounter on the Tuesday. I'm sure Nicky Henderson will have her absolutely spot on. Honeysuckle, I agree with John. Her best performance was in the Irish champion hurdle last time out. But the one thing I think Honeysuckle will not have encountered is the pace at the start of this champion hurdle. She's got to get her first couple of hurdles jumped right. She does not want to make any silly mistakes and give away ground at the early part of the race. It's a fascinating race, and if I had to just pick one, I wouldn't even pick them three. I'm going to go with Abracadabra each way at about 12-1. I just look back to his run in the Supreme last year, finishing second to Shishkin. Gordon's horses were not right around Christmas time. They ran an awful lot better at the Dublin Racing Festival. Spring ground, I think, is key to him. And I just think each way he could hit the frame.
That's a very valid point. And we see with the form, he has festival form. And of course, Johnathan Mullin festival form is really, has always been over the years. Festival form has stood up. The champion hurdle and the champion chase, and we'll get you to launch as well into the Cheltenham Gold Cup, the first of our summaries of the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Your view firstly, Johnathan, on the champion hurdle?
Yeah, very similar to John and Leon. A lot of the time guys were knocking Goshen's Triumph hurdle run last year, which is fair enough. The time is the time, but you couldn't be but help and impressed by your eye what you saw there. And with Aspire Tower and All Mankind in behind, I think sometimes your natural first instinct in a race can out-trump all the other things. So I think Goshen is a very worthy contender. Honeysuckle had a lot to prove in Cheltenham, the Irish champion hurdle, because she was taking on a real quality field over 2 miles the first time. She passed that test, but she got another one again on Tuesday because she'll have a similar challenge again. She'll also have to do it on quicker ground, which will be an issue. And she's also got another mare getting £7, and of course, in distance winning mare, who, if she's right, jumps as good as any of the geldings in the race, and they're very, very hard to beat. Hard one to call, George. Not one for a bet for me. I'm hoping that Rachel Blackmore and Honeysuckle can win. I think it'd be a nice story, and that'd be my hope for the champion rather than having a bet. Champion chase. I think the key, the championship quarter, which John McIntyre will be very familiar with, the championship quarter of that race, the bit where Jacquemin Poursois tends to turn the screw. I think it's the key part of the race here, because he will need a good championship quarter to put Altior to bed and to get to take the sting out of Nubin Negra. And unless he does that, unless he can manage that, he's going to have a real battle on his hands. And so it'll be very, very interesting to see how Paul Townend plays this tactically. I think if he does manage to get them rolling in that part of the race, I think his class will tell. He was very, very unlucky last year. It wasn't a soundness issue. He literally stepped on a stone. The race fell apart last year. This year's race, even with the mare that Leon mentioned put the kettle on, is an entirely different race. Much, much better race. And I like Shakin Puswar. I hope he does it. Gold Cup, very open. It's incredibly open race this year. Very impressed with La Plutarde at Leopardstown at Christmas time. Thought he was very, very good. Champ surprised me. He wouldn't have been on my list at all before his run the last day. And it's a real bit of sorcery from Nicky Henderson here. The favourite is also very, very solid. To me, it's one to sit back and watch. I don't have a strong opinion on the Gold Cup, George. Sorry.
Oh, lads, you still haven't mentioned the winner. Leon, your view on the Gold Cup?
Having looked at the race a little bit now, everything points back to Al Boum Photo. I think on his 2 wins in the particular race, one was at quite a quick pace, one was at a slow pace. I think he found himself in front way too early 12 months ago. And for him to still win showed his battling quality. He obviously loves Cheltenham. This kind of tremor to Cheltenham only happened by luck. It was never the plan. But if it's not broke, there's no need to fix it. And I think he does set the standard. Champ and a Plutarde, like Johnny, they're the two that are the ones you're hoping can kind of step into this top class and really put it up to him. If you look at a Plutarde, his form obviously got a boost with Ken Boy winning so easily at the Dublin Racing Festival. You look at Champ, it could prove to be a stroke of genius by Nicky Henderson getting his prep run in over 2 miles. The one thing I think Nico de Boinville is going to have to do with Champ is try and settle him. Now that could be aided by a quite quick pace. You've got Native River, you've got Frodon, so I think there's going to be no hiding place in this year's Gold Cup. I think it's going to be a true test of stamina, and you have to get that extra 70 yards. That 70 yards is all what really matters when you come to the business end of a Gold Cup. And for that reason, I do still feel Al Boum Photo is going to go into the history books, emulate Arkle, emulate Best Mate, and win 3 Gold Cups in a row. I think a Plutarde is a very interesting runner. He's coming into the race fresh. And I think that's a key point here. Al Boum Photo has won the last 2 Gold Cups, having only run on New Year's Day. A Plutarde won at the very end of December at Leopardstown. He's coming here. It looked as if he was absolutely loving the stepping up and trip to 3 miles. And I think the step up again to him for the Gold Cup trip shouldn't pose a problem. But I'm sticking with Al Boum Photo. We want to see history, and I'd love to see him do it again.
John McIntyre, from a management perspective, if it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. Like, if the plan is there, the last 2 years they've done this. Do you think it will succeed a third time? You've seen Best Mate in Cheltenham win a Gold Cup. Do you think that Al Boum Photo will be a worthy 3-time winner of the Gold Cup? And do you think he will win the Gold Cup?
Well, he's definitely a worthy market leader. He's been there and done it twice. Now, look, he didn't win either Gold Cup by 10 lengths or 15 lengths. He didn't pulverise the field in either of those races. I mean, Santini was coming back at him all the way to the line in last year's Gold Cup. But as Leon said, he was probably hit the front too soon under Paul Townend. There's question marks about most of the contenders. Lost in Translation just hasn't turned into the horse that the Tizzers thought he might be. Native River, he's an admirable horse. He's won the Gold Cup 3 years ago, but now I just think he's too old. 11-year-olds don't win the Gold Cup anymore. Plutarde has handicap winning form at Cheltenham. You'd have to be impressed by the way he stayed every yard of the 3 miles at Leopardstown. And as the lads have already mentioned, I mean, what Champ did in Newbury over 2 miles, his reappearance hadn't been seen on a race course since he came from the clouds to pit Manila Endo and Alaho in the RSA as it was then known 12 months ago. He certainly is a potential fly in the ointment. I still wouldn't give up on Plutarde's stablemate Manila Endo, the former Albert Bartlett winner. He fell in Leopardstown at Christmas. That's a concern. There was no excuses for him being beaten in the Irish Gold Cup at the same track in February. But I think he's a Cheltenham horse. I think he's a value bet now. He's about 14 to 1. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he is with you, Leon. And I just think he's an each-way play. I think he'll stay. Mm-hmm. If he can avoid trouble in running, I think he could emerge as the main danger to Album Photo. But look, in the history of Cheltenham, only 4 horses have ever won the Gold Cup 3 times. And when you think that Willie Mullins thought before Album Photo came on the scene that he was never going to win the most prestigious race in the National Hunt calendar, and here he is now preparing the horse to win the race for a 3rd time in a row. He's the one to beat, but I wouldn't rule out Manila Indo, and I think Champ is a fascinating contender simply because of what he did in Newbury over a woefully inadequate trip.
Just briefly, John, and I just have to ask you, have you won any handicap horse and your charity bet for Roosevelt Rooms in association with Boylesports?
Well, as I said earlier, I've latched on to the Skeleton Yard a couple of years ago, and their horses are in great form. And my understanding, as we preview Cheltenham, is that 3rd Time Lucky will be going for the county hurdle rather than Supreme. I know his form took a bit of a knock in Musselburgh the last day, but it was a very slowly run race. It wouldn't have suited him at all. He made a bad mistake at the last. He's been well punted, I believe, as well, Leon, for the county hurdle. He'd be my charity bet. Look, at the handicaps at the moment are a minefield because so many horses have multiple entries, and I'm prepared to win. I would just give a squeak to Liam Ryan's horse in the Boodles, Fred Winter, Sofinian. He finished 2nd in a race in Navan that has turned out the winner of the Fred Winter for the last 2 seasons. He's not badly handicapped, and we all want to see a local horse doing well, and we have to give a mention as well to Flooring Porter in the Stairs. Yes. He won a handicap from the front in Navan. The lads supplemented him for the Christmas hurdle at the Dublin at the Leopardstown Christmas Festival. Led from the front. It seems to have rejuvenated the horse, and with Time Hill out of the race now, he's gone into, I think, about an 8 to 1 chance. So I think both the Galway horses, Flooring Porter is more of a West of Ireland horse, and Liam Ryan's Zafinian are horses to back each way. But for me, my handicap bet and my charity bet would be 3rd Time Lucky in the county hurdle. I just hope he's not declared for the Supreme Novices on Tuesday.
Leon, before I go to you, Leon, Johnathan Mullin, the king of the handicaps, your own handicap thought, number 1, and finally your charity bet as well.
I tell you what, I'll amalgamate both of them, George. I'm making the same horse. I'm going to go with Who Grease in the Boodles on Tuesday. Big money purchase with Paul Nichols after I've been a winner and twice placed in France. Made his British debut in the finale at Chepstow. Was an anti-post favourite actually the week beforehand, but drifted markedly in advance of the race, which was obviously delayed and pushed back until early January. Ran well that day behind Adagio and Nasalam. Made a mistake at the second last and tired. He hadn't been bought that long, and he's rated nearly £20 below Nasalam and Adagio now. He's off 128, and Nichols is a master of this race, the likes of Sanctuary and others in the past, and I think I've marked 128. Usually when you have a big weight range in a race like a Fred Winter, when you have 11.10 down to 10.4, it's often the horse near the bottom that do the business, and so I'd like, with thanks to Leon and Boylesports, I'll have the charity bet on Who Grease in the Boodles.
Leon, your own charity bet on any handicap thought briefly?
Yeah, George, I'm going to wait till the very last race of the entire festival. As I said, I was watching back a bit of the Dublin Racing Festival last night, and I thought Galopin des Champs ran a good race in the race behind Appreciated. I think he's going to go for the Martin Pipe. I think he's around about a 16 to 1 chance. So I think €50 each way will be my charity bet for Roosevelt Rooms. And George, just to say what's happening just on St. Patrick's night, it's on Monroe's Facebook page. They've got a fantastic live concert for free. It obviously starts at 8 o'clock And if anyone wants to donate to Rosabelle Rooms, it's for families around Ireland that have lost any type of child up to the age, I think, 21. It's to help them with counselling and bereavement services. So it's very simple to text 50300. It'll only cost you €4. 50300. Text Rosabelle 50300. Only costs €4, and it helps out the entire country with families who have suffered a horrific loss.
Well, that is fantastic, Leon, and we will look forward to the concert. But the charity will already have a few quid in the bank after St. Patrick's Day on Wednesday, and I'll tell you why. My view on the Gold Cup, lads, I think after watching a couple of races the last number of nights, I think a Plutard will win the Gold Cup and could be a marvellous double for Rachel Blackmore, winning both the Champion Hurdle and the Gold Cup. If she does it, I'll be watching the Champion Hurdle with interest, but I think she's a marvellous chance of winning the Gold Cup aboard at Plutard. For my charity bet, Leon, please, I would like you to enhance the price from 7-1 to 10-1, the way that Rosabelle Rooms will already have £1,000 in the bank come Wednesday night, because it is my belief that Entuka, the horse that couldn't knock over Pat Healy, will knock the bookmakers over in the Grand Annual Chase on Wednesday and win it, because he's been set up for this. Behind Daily Tiger was a beautiful run, may I say. Went the scenic route at Fairyhouse. And a bit of the scenic route about him went prominent again behind A Wave to the Sea and Company, and the shunter form that has been franked since. And I think N2K is waiting to entertain us on St. Patrick's Day. That is the day for him. The horse that couldn't knock over Healy will knock over the bookmakers, and I'd like you to enhance it to 10-1 for that point.
Well, there's no problem there, George. Of course, I'm going to enhance that for such a fantastic cause. And I want to give a quick shout out to Paul Bourne. I'd love to see his horse, the Shunter, collect that 100 grand bonus, because I think what a fantastic bit of placing by Emmett and Paul in terms of being able, first of all, to get this horse in with a chance of winning 100 grand. Maybe Johnny Mullin might know which one he'll end up in, but sure, it doesn't matter at the moment. It's non-runner cash back, even if you back him in all the entries that he has. But it'd be great for Emmett Mullins. He's been able to pick a couple of races in the UK. He's gone over there and he's plundered them. I think he's a kid with a huge future, and he's with a very shrewd owner as well in Paul Bourne. So best of luck to them in terms of getting their 100 grand bonus.
Yes, it is, and I would agree with you there. It would be great to see the shunter, and of course Emmett Mullins, who has such a great record, a great strike rate, it has to be said. Finally, lads, can I thank you very, very much for joining us on Galway Bay FM with our Cheltenham preview. I look forward to getting your thoughts again in the upcoming festivals, the likes of Punchestown and Galway come July. It's been a real thrill to have you on air with us this afternoon. The best of luck with your punting. The very best of luck to Rosabelle Rooms with that fantastic offer from Leon Blanche, giving us all 100 quid. Let's hope we can make a few quid for them. And as I depart you, lads, I would just give you two little words. That come next Friday, you'd be saying, where did we hear this last? Our old friend Mengley Khan, who has turned up in a few races, as we know, I think has a mighty little squeak in the county hurdle next Friday. Remember, he was third in the Supreme. Johnathan Mullin is shaking his head. He's as quirky. This horse is as quirky as myself. But Henderson has
pull down that fader. Pull down.
Has flicked him around. He has flicked him around on two these bumpers. And I think Mengley Khan will finally get his day in the sun in the county hurdle. Gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure to have you on board with us this year. Best of luck for Cheltenham. And once again, thank you very much. And thank you very much for Boylesports, our sponsors as well.
Galway Bay